There we go.
Brilliant. Okay, so starting off with the context of the project, with 2025 marking the rail industry's 200th anniversary, the opportunities to both celebrate the progress made in sustainable travel and explore the ways to further innovate were presented. For GoCRP, looking to the future was recognized as an exercise that demanded the voices of young people. The position held by young people in the transport landscape, as we all know, is distinct, as they are one, a group whose current and future behavior remains influenceable, and two, they are a cohort with enough travel experience to have developed opinions on the services. Their understanding of the transport network then not only provides industry stakeholders with feedback that may continue to promote early use of bus and rail for future generations, but also helps to cultivate a frequent user base as young people age into the workforce. Their insights are thus nothing short of gold dust for us. Consultations with young people have in many ways already taken place. In 2024, GoCRP created the Youth Transport Forum, gathering insights from 913 young people across Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire about the barriers deterring their use of rail. But gathering insights is not the same as handing over leadership, and young people have been asked what they thought, but they have not yet been trusted to take that further. The Vision 2225 project was designed to change just that. Every stage of the program set out to create a structured space where young people aged 16 to 25 could move from sharing opinions to leading inquiry through identifying priorities, researching solutions, compiling evidence for policy briefs, and advocating directly to decision makers with the power to act. This project did not begin from the question of whether young people had useful insights. The 913 insights from the forum had more than demonstrated the utility of the youth perspective. The question this project sought to answer was what happens when you treat the ideas of young people as the beginning of the process, not the end of one. To the next slide, please, Hannah. Beautiful. Okay, so what we did. The program itself ran across 4 phases, each building on the contributions of the young people who participated at previous stages. We began with 4 youth-led research workshops promoted through a social media campaign, which gained 40,574 impressions, reached 21,548 users, and received 970 link engagements. The 11 participants that ultimately attended the workshops used the Youth Transport Report as a starting point for a live discussion, not to invalidate the findings, but to go further with them, to explore the nature of these deterrents identified by their peers and brainstorm solutions for the 6 transport reform priority areas that they had identified across the 2 counties. Phase 2 saw 2 university student ambassadors, one from Oxfordshire and one from Gloucestershire, then develop the proposed solutions into full policy briefs. Drawing on academic research, case studies, and feasibility analysis, the ambassadors produced written recommendations on the topics of integrated ticketing, cycling infrastructure, bus bunching, sign accessibility, active travel, and travel anxiety. And they also created some visual concept designs for some of those key proposals. Alongside this, a partnership with the University of Gloucestershire brought in a further 16 students to undertake mixed methodologies research on 3 of the topics from the youth workshops, namely integrated ticketing, cycling infrastructure, and bus bunching. And the final phase of this project was a stakeholder presentation in which the student ambassadors presented their 6 recommendations directly to transport operators and community partners, fielding questions and advocating for their peers' priorities in a professional setting. Beautiful. This is just some pictures from the project itself. I think the next one is the beautiful. Thank you, Hannah. So when we look at the impact this project had on our participants, change was most evident in 2 key groups. The first was within the 11 workshop participants. In this cohort, we saw a shift in confidence, the outcome of which was a cohort with a sense of empowerment and motivation to continue exploring transport reform. And the second group, the 2 student ambassadors, the change was slightly more tangible, taking the form of gaining paid workplace experience in creating outputs that could be added to a professional portfolio. Across both groups, though, the consistent change was one of agency. Young people who moved from being subjects of transport planning to active contributors to it. That shift from the consulted to the active advocates is what Vision 2225 was built to create ultimately. Then I think the next slide is just some of the recommendations put forward by our participants and a brief summary as well. And then the next slide should be beautiful, the evidence. So we saw an increase in confidence and experience, but how do we know this occurred and so what? The evidence of this change was primarily qualitative, being largely derived from conversations with and reflections shared by participants, as well as staff observation. So for workshop participants, the change in confidence was observed across the two sessions. The young people who arrived for the first session, were arrived uncertain about whether their views were worth sharing, were more reserved and hesitant to share their experiences and ideas, but they left the second session having challenged our expert panelists, collaboratively identified policy gaps, and produced presentations for a panel of industry leaders. By session 2, participants showed both greater comfort and confidence in that space. This confidence was not short-lived either. In December, 8 of the 11 participants returned to review and talk through some of the reforms put forward in preparation for ambassador recruitment. And not only were participants still eager to discuss these recommendations, but they actively sought further opportunities to get involved in transport policy. One participant from Gloucestershire noted in our correspondence, "I enjoyed shaping those policy recommendations, and shaping them further would be my pleasure." 5 expressly requested to be contacted if further opportunities to collaborate with GoCRP arose as well. This sustained eagerness points to that evolution of confidence, from hesitant workshop attendees to active collaborators who feel secure in discussing transport policy and keen to continue their involvement. The change experienced by the student ambassadors, as mentioned, was slightly more tangible and in a sense measurable. Having assumed these roles, both had the opportunity to develop their research techniques, policy writing, and professional communication skills in a real world context, having produced 2 briefs and 2 policy visualizations. Honing these vital transferable skills and having the outputs to show for it has given these young people CV ready experience that they can not only apply as they complete their studies, but then leverage as they transition into the workforce. It's worth mentioning that since the conclusion of this project, our Gloucestershire representative reached out to us to let us know that his participation in this project has inspired a pursuit in transport planning as a career, and our Oxfordshire representative, having shared their portfolio with several prestigious internship programs, was actually able to secure an internship at the Times as of June 2nd. So opportunities like this are supporting genuinely life-changing outcomes for the young people that we're working with. Thanks, Hannah. So what we learned. Ultimately, our learnings as an organization have been threefold. The first was that peer evidence bases matter. Using the 913 insights from the Youth Transport Forum as the starting point gave participants a sense that they were building on something real. They were not being asked to generate views from scratch. They were challenged to feel a sense of responsibility for the experiences of their peers and explore changes that could make the transport network an even more positive space for them. That framing changed how participants approached the work. They saw themselves as advocates for other young people who could make meaningful change to address the barriers identified by their peers, spurring a deep commitment to the project and its outcomes. The second lesson learned was that the expert panel and stakeholder presentation dimensions of Vision 2225 are project elements worth protecting in youth policy projects. Their direct exchange between young participants and transport decision makers was the element most frequently described by our young workshop participants as impactful, having created a feeling that their ideas were truly being heard and valued. Both the panel and presentation created professional exposure that no amount of workshop discussion alone can replicate, and a forum for advocacy that presentations to peers alone cannot provide. The panel and stakeholder presentation should therefore remain a core feature of all of our future policy programs. Lesson 3 was that professional exposure creates pathways. Both ambassadors described gaining skills and experience they could not have accessed through their degree programs alone. For students navigating a competitive graduate labor market, having these transferable skills exercised in industry and portfolio pieces produced for a real organization, not just seminar exercises, is meaningfully different. Vision 2225 did not set out to be a project centered on upskilling young people for the workforce, but the opportunities this project provided to our young participants created an environment where such change was possible. And it's these sorts of opportunities that young people are eager for, those chances to find their passion and their direction. And therefore, it is these sorts of opportunities that we will continue to strive to provide for our young community members. So that is actually that is my time. I just wanted to thank you guys for your time.